Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. Joining me as he does every week is our friend Dr. Gregory Popcak. He and his bride Lisa co-host More to Life, one of the greatest hours on EWTN's national radio programming, produced by Ave Maria Radio. And they are also the founders and directors of CatholicCounselors.com and the CatholicHOM app, Households on Mission, that's hoping to help families thrive with the teachings of the theology of the body and John Paul II. Greg, great to speak with you again. How are you?
I'm doing well. Great to be here, Marcus. Thank you.
I want to. So the topic we're talking about today has to do with the secular narrative that marriage and children lead to unhappiness, and unfortunately, that narrative is replete. You know, you see artists go on media and say, "Well, you know, my friends who are married and have children, they're some of the most miserable people. They're dead." My bride and I can't say that that's us, but I'm opening there. We have recent studies that prove otherwise.
Well, that's right. So Brad Wilcox and his team at the Institute for Family Studies just released a report that found that, in fact, both women and men who are married with children are happier than the general population, and they came to that conclusion based on survey data that was part of the General Social Survey, which is a representative sample of Americans that the National Opinion Research Council does every couple of years. They interview just thousands of people about just dozens and dozens of different questions, and then social scientists kind of get to use that as a playground, essentially, to do different studies and look at different. So what they were able to look at is that they found that 19% of married mothers said they were very happy, compared to 10% of unmarried childless women. 47% of married mothers said that their lives were enjoyable, while 34% of unmarried women without children said the same. And I think a lot of this, because I've seen similar studies on this before, including the studies that say that women in particular who are married with children are less happy than everybody else. And a lot of it has to do with how the study defines happiness, because a lot of the studies that find that women are, in particular, are less happy than other women, define happiness as just simple enjoyment or the lack of conflict or complications in life. But there is a broader definition in positive psychology that refers to what psychologists call authentic happiness. So Martin Seligman is a psychologist at the University of Pennsylvania who's considered to be kind of the father of positive psychology. And he wanted to look at when we talk about happiness, what do we really mean? Is it just enjoyment or the absence of conflict or complications, or is it something more to it? And so he actually studied people who were happy. And tried to look at, well, what's wrong with them? Why are they so unhappy all the time? And what he came to, and I'm kind of summarizing here, is three qualities that emerged that, in addition to enjoyment, of course, a pleasurable life is part of happiness. But he said that beyond that, there were three things that these happy people had that other less happy people didn't. And they basically meaningfulness, intimacy, and virtue. So meaningfulness refers to my ability to use my gifts and talents to make a positive difference in my environment and in the lives of the people around me. So I'm looking for active ways to make a positive contribution to the lives of the people around me or to my circumstances. Intimacy has to do with the strength and health and quality of the relationships that I have with the people around me. And virtue has to do, and positive psychologists actually use the term virtue, not in a spiritual or moral sense, but more in a philosophical sense, but referring to kind of character strength, right? The pursuit of virtue for these positive psychologists has to do with being able to use whatever life throws at me as an opportunity for growth, for learning, an opportunity to sharpen my skills, if you will. And so what they found was that the people who pursue more meaningfulness, intimacy, and virtue in their lives are, generally speaking, happier than those who don't, even people who have more enjoyable or pleasurable lives. And so when you look at happiness through that lens, I think it makes sense why you could easily say that people who are married with children are happier than people who aren't.
And The study by Brad and his team, AEI also did similar surveys some years ago, but the fact of the matter is that these results aren't just isolated to the United States. In 2012, the National Bureau of Economic Research did a similar study across 17 countries. The results were exactly the same. It's stable, monogamous marriages and children that report individuals feeling happier by that broader virtuous definition.
Well, that's right. And this particular study by Wilcox and his team, goes into more detail about why this might be. One of the reasons that they say is because marriage and family life provides more opportunities for social interaction than the single life does. And of course, social interaction is a key component of happiness, even if you don't use the metric I was just describing for meaningfulness, intimacy, and virtue. The second thing is, interestingly, physical touch. They make a note that there aren't a lot of studies that really look at the importance of physical touch to happiness, but we are people who need affection. And I will always remind people that babies need affection even more than they need food, and we don't outgrow that really. And so. They make the point to say Americans spent 67 fewer hours per year in face-to-face social interactions in 2017 than they did in 2003. Younger Americans, aged 15 to 25, spent 140 fewer hours per year. And so with less physical interaction and less face time with each other, they describe that this is leading to kind of an epidemic of what they call touch hunger, that need to be in the presence of another person, interacting with them, not necessarily hugging each other all day long, but just being there with each other. The normal touches that occur between friends, or when you're in the presence of other people, it feeds our souls in a way that the digital interactions just don't.
In fact, if I may ask you to just build on that too, that we know from a wide body of research that diminished physical interaction, especially physical touch and affection, actually leads to proportionately higher anxiety and depression rates.
Well, that's right. And in fact, people tend to think that anxiety has to do with the occurrence of particular problems in our life. And of course, it doesn't not have anything to do with that. But really, what research shows is that even in the presence of problems, if I feel connected in meaningful ways to the people around me, I will be less anxious in the presence of those problems than somebody who isn't having problems but feels less connected to the people around them. So anxiety is actually a sign of a lack of connection in my life, not so much a sign of problems. And if you think about it this way, if imagine it from an evolutionary standpoint, if I'm walking through the woods by myself, I've got to watch out for those saber-toothed tigers who might be jumping out, at any moment. If I'm walking with my tribe, I know people have my back. I can relax and enjoy the scenery. Right. And so, it's a silly metaphor, but it makes the point that when we weren't created to be alone. Man is not good for man to be alone. And when we feel alone, even if we're around other people, that produces anxiety, because it's a warning to us that, hey, you shouldn't be on your own. You shouldn't be handling this all by yourself. And so, of course, marriage and children present that opportunity to not be so alone as we would if we were unmarried without children.
Which again goes back to what the church has been teaching all along. And if you could also comment on the fact that because of these secularist narratives, we've pushed marriage further and further down the age of an individual. And so people are waiting longer to get married. Some are just flat out opting not to get married. And we wonder why society gets more miserable and less productive.
Well, that's exactly right. And this is why the church asserts that the family is the basic unit of civilization. And I think as Catholics, we when we hear that, we kind of take it for granted. But when you compare it to the other things that could be the basic unit of civilization, the individual, for example, and when you have the individual as the basic unit of civilization, you end up with anarchy, basically because everybody's pushing their own rights, and ultimately the strong win. Right? If you have the state as the basis of civilization, now you have communism. If the family is the only unit that combines the individual with the community in a way that's meaningful and can support civilization. And this study really kind of points to that on a macro level.
Greg, always a joy to connect with you. Thank you for sharing this wisdom with us.
Always a pleasure, Marcus. Thank you.
My guest has been Dr. Gregory Popcak. He and his bride Lisa co-host More to Life. They also run the CatholicHOM app. Do look it up and find ways that our families can thrive as Catholics. Stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter.